Hi everybody, Rad Mom here. Welcome back to the garden, where this evening we are finally going to be taking on Jessie Gender again. I think I promised myself a few years ago that I was not going to do this again, but the thing is, he's really not wrong about a whole lot, which really doesn't help at all. It really just makes everything that much worse. But I don't have a lot of issue with necessarily a lot of his arguments. My question really is how in the world one can be such a massive hypocrite and not like tear a hole in the space-time continuum. So like the video if you enjoy my content and subscribe to the channel so we can all work together to drag feminism back into the real world. Because as we shall see, not everyone lives there. See, we're actually gonna do a little bit of armchair psychoanalysis on Jessie. I wasn't actually gonna film this today, and I was just, gonna watch through the video, to see what we had going on, and and then he says shit like this.
I don't think there is like an objective masculinity that is meaningfully different from like an objective feminine. I think they're basically the same thing.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I've been using the term because that's the term that I think will be helpful for people watching the video, but yeah.
Then what are you doing? What the fuck is this all about?
I don't know. The way I look at it is like masculine is whatever you say is masculine.
Fucking game over. The end. Right? And isn't that what we're always saying? This entire fucking 4-hour whatever marathon of self-serving nonsense is fucking all about, toxic masculinity and whatever, and escaping that. And apparently, he doesn't see the fucking contradiction here, the fucking giant, elephant in the room, as it were. Here, the idea that, someone, oh God, okay. The reason that we're gonna just go ahead, we're gonna do a little armchair psychoanalysis of Jessie instead of just, arguing with the one or two things that he's kind of wrong about, because he's extremely wrong about one core thing, and unfortunately, therefore, everything that he stacks on top of that is, tilted. But his core confusion is a failure to distinguish the external from the internal. That's the conclusion I've come to. Because he makes the same mistake over and over and over again, wherein he doesn't understand that his perception is not necessarily representative of like the wider world outside of his fucking head. That causes him a lot of confusion and consternation and anxiety, and he doesn't understand that when people say mean things about him, it doesn't fucking matter unless he says it does. But so this means that his perception of the world gives us a pretty raw peek inside his psyche, right? Since he doesn't differentiate between the two. So, this is going to be pretty illustrative and interesting, I think. And it's, as an INFJ, this is just kind of one of the things that I do. So, please let me know in the comments if you think I'm off base about whatever. But, this is my way of trying to make this fun. Because I don't necessarily disagree with anything that he said about toxic masculinity. The thing about that is, if you don't believe that masculinity is a real thing, what the fuck are you transitioning from? And or to? Why in the fuck did you have to drag women into your personal drama, Jessie? Oh, yeah, because he actually explains that without realizing it. Because, he goes to some lengths to talk about how, as a woman, he understands what it's like to be objectified and used as an emotional dumping ground for men. And then goes on to describe how basically womanhood is his emotional dumping ground because he couldn't find a woman to listen to him. Oh my gosh, where was that? Here we go.
I remember when I used to look at women as someone who thought I was a boy and wished for connection. Yearned for them to notice me. I remember how I just wanted a woman to listen to me, to hear me. Because I just wanted to share the pain that I felt all the time.
And I don't think that desire has changed in the slightest. Do you? I think that in a lot of ways he's decided to become that woman. You know, he does admit at one point that this whole thing is more than a little self-serving. That was actually some refreshing level of insight there, because oh my god, y'all, 4 fucking hours of okay, but you know, quite frankly, I mean, really to the point where it made so much sense, like I'm waiting for the detransition almost, you know, not really because who it is, but like if it were anyone else, yeah, I'd be wondering if they were reconsidering, okay, because he's making that much sense. But it's all built on a foundation of bullshit, which makes it sad and aggravating. Yeah. So we are going to take little snippets, because I am not responding to 4 straight fucking hours of this dude repeating himself, which he does endlessly.
There's kind of a baked-in assumption that there's this universal male and female experience that is still innate in what genitals we are born with, or at least in what we're taught specifically based on those genitals that we're born with in each and every culture and group in society. I've heard trans men describe female socialization as some sort of singular experience that every AFAB person goes through, and the same with trans women like myself, as if assigned male at birth people have the same exact understanding of the expectations of gender that we are supposed to live up to.
No, but the external world cares not for your understanding, sir, okay? That they all have the same expectations thrust upon them. That's what they're experiencing. It's that external world that's not controlled by what goes on inside your head, that you seem to have such trouble conceptualizing of in any serious manner, which, you know, would be funny if it weren't so damn sad.
At a very young age, you start to get the sense of expectations for the man you're supposed to become.
Can there not be more than one kind? Apparently that's the conclusion we ended up coming to. But, you know, this is him describing his experience of being a failed man. A failed boy. Okay? Even though he goes on to describe how he was an Eagle Scout and was literally given the award for being the best boy. And apparently that wasn't enough. You know, it's almost as if there's something deeper going on here. This is great though. And by great, I mean awful and illuminating.
Everything around you tells you to exist a certain way. You see images of this perfect man, this perfect exemplar of who you're supposed to be everywhere.
Never apologize, mister. It's a sign of weakness.
We all know this man. He's the man who appears as the lead in every single big blockbuster movie. It's the man that you see on the front of every magazine cover at the grocery store. And it's the man you see when you start a video game off and turn on a character creator. That blank, naked, white, muscular dude who stares back at you as the default. You don't have to turn the dials or the sliders or mess with anything. That same endless video game man face that you see so many characters have. I saw who on TV filled specific roles of the breadwinner, the gutter cleaner, the tough guy, all men. TV shows, media, the way your mother tells you to man up.
My mother never told me that, for obvious reasons, I guess, but like, I'm pretty sure not all mothers say that. I have 2 sons and I have I would never. Yeah, not everybody's mother says stuff like that to them, honey.
These things are expected of you, and as a kid, you learn all of these things. I saw how if I hurt myself, I was told to suck it up. I was constantly asked to play sports, to get involved in baseball, football, something athletic, because I was a boy. I was never good at any of them or cared about any of them, nor showed any real interest in them, and yet everyone around me was telling me that this is what I was supposed to do or what I had to join to be my full self.
Right, so you deviated from the norm, like rendering their assumptions erroneous. Okay, I know a little something about that. People, assume certain things about you based upon what they can see. And if you're strange on the inside, they're going to be wrong a lot. It's called being an outlier. It happens. It's okay.
At a young age, based upon our bodies as well, we are told that we actually could become that guy. That avatar then strips us of our ability to have our own identity. I never would be, never could be that man, and neither could many other men. But I knew I was supposed to be. And so I tried to live up to him. I tried to play him, tried to press myself into that form. He didn't have an identity. He didn't have any form of self-expression. He was a role, a function to play out the story of a man in our society. I was to play this role. I was supposed to become that blank avatar that stares back at you, sliders unmoved.
But he was offered the chance at dominance, or he perceived himself to be. But he saw that as unattainable for him. So it's like literally sour grapes. The fable of the sour grapes. Nah, whatever, I can't reach them, they're probably sour anyway. And then he just keeps on bringing race into things for reasons. I don't know why his preoccupation with race. Honestly, I don't quite see the connection, and in fact I think that it is a pretty illogical and erroneous connection to make, actually. I want to point out at right around 20 minutes, the text on screen and the narration do not match. For whatever that's worth.
Of our protestations that social groups don't matter and that we see everyone as equal, we know that to be a man, as defined by the dominant culture, is a different experience from being a woman. We know that to be viewed as old is different from being viewed as young. Rich is different from poor. Able-bodied, different from having a disability. Gay, different from heterosexual, and so on. These groups matter, but they don't matter naturally, as we are often taught to believe.
Yeah, to the individual's internal experience, maybe not. In their perception, they arise from the realities of the external world. And others' interpretations of that can get thrust upon you, and that's annoying. We all know that.
Rather, we are taught that they matter, and the social meaning ascribed to these groups creates a difference in lived experience.
Of being poor? Like telling someone they're poor and that that's a bad thing is what makes being poor suck? Spoken like somebody who's never been fucking poor. Being old? Like you only know you're old because people treat you like you're old? Spoken as someone who's never been old. I'm only 40 and I already feel it, okay? Like, I can only imagine what 80 would be like. I'm pretty sure that's just a material reality outside of your head. Okay, and youth is the same. It's, inexperience. You can't help just not having had enough time to have more experience to learn more. Like, this is not about labels. These labels rise from something. And yeah, they do spin off their own meaning, but like, man, you got the order completely backwards. And like, what the fuck does white fragility have to do? I don't know. And then he goes on to tell the whole Eagle Scout and this very long anecdote, which basically could be summed up as toxic masculinity bad. But yeah, and this is the part where my brain started to hurt. Okay, because we're over an hour in now at this point, because I saved you a whole lot of time just skipping straight over the Eagle Scout thing. I just skipped it. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant to our conversation. Anyway.
It's all stemming out of that fear that they aren't enough, that they aren't men unless they're constantly displaying this projected manhood for others in competition with others to showcase that, yes, they're the more dominant manly men.
which is literally what he said about himself earlier in the video.
Yet it's all just stemming from a childlike sense of anxiety and a lack of feeling of self-worth.
Like, are you talking about yourself, honey? Do you hear yourself? Because projection is all someone like this knows how to do. As I say, he seems to, from what I can tell, basically entirely fail to concretely separate the internal and external worlds. Okay, so what he, any observation that he makes about other people, it comes, it's an observation that he's making about himself, basically, which is fun, right?
One study found that a man who feels personally deprived in his personal life is also more likely to endorse sexist attitudes.
That's a very interesting little fact there. I wonder what that might mean. How one might interpret that. Maybe that's why they're lonely. Because they're assholes. Or maybe this sort of thing can take on different forms. Such as preoccupation with rigid gender norms. This might manifest in a lot of different ways in different people, is my thought.
But I fear being essentialized, because our culture tells us that once we are something, we are that thing forever. And if we are branded that as such in the eyes of others, that's all we should ever be seen as. So a lot of people are afraid to be open about it because we don't want to be commodified as the racist person. But because we don't want to be seen that way, we don't want to be essentialized that way, commodified that way, we deny it, hide it, push it away when we need to take ownership of it. I need to be open about it because that's the only way that I can grow and that others can hopefully learn and grow too. And if people hate me or don't forgive me or don't like me because of what I did all those years ago, well, that's absolutely their right. They have every right to feel that way. I hope that I've shown that I've grown since I was 12 years old, but I understand if that's not something that you're okay with, even all these years later.
So, and he's comparing here racism with maleness. The issue being that racism is a set of beliefs and behaviors that you can stop believing and doing. Sex is neither of those, it's deeper than that. It's foundational to behaviors and sometimes beliefs, right? You can't just stop being a man, Jessie. No matter how much you try, no matter how hard you wish, it's not gonna happen. So that's the end of part 1, folks. Well, that's the end of the interesting stuff in part 1 anyway. The stuff that I felt was worth psychoanalyzing. Part 2 is actually where a lot of the meat and potatoes are. So, come back next week for part 2. And I'm just an armchair psychologist. I am not a psychologist, really. I am an amateur, and I'm just trying to have a little bit of fun with this material because this guy is 99% right, I swear. And then that 1% is like the teaspoon of sewage in the cask of wine that spoils the whole damn thing. It's ridiculous. Thank you so much for joining me, for picking apart a little bit of Jessie Gender's psyche, and come back next week where we will discuss part 2 of his debunking of the myth of male socialization. Because the external world doesn't really exist, right? La 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 la. Anyway, like the video if you enjoy my content. Subscribe to the channel so we can all work together to drag feminism back into the real world, because boy does it need it. Join me tomorrow at 11 a.m. for the live stream where we will be discussing some of this along with whatever random crap cursed to us that day. They're always fun. And I look forward to seeing you there, and next week where we do the second half of Jessie Gender, and yeah. I guess that's it for now. Okay, thanks. Bye.